the battle between Veldanava's strongest subordinate and Rimuru's strongest servant raged on. Diablo managed to clash blow for blow with Feldway's Genesis-level sword. Yet, Feldway remained confident. Even without his ultimate skills, he believed he could still defeat this mere demon. But then, Diablo unveiled his trump card, the ultimate destructive energy granted by Rimuru. For one of the few times in his life, Feldway felt fear. And then Diablo spoke. Fu-fu-fu-fu-fu. Feldway, you should be proud. You're the first person to make me reveal everything I have. In the shattered void between dimensions, two figures clashed, one driven by divine authority, the other by absolute devotion. Feldway, the angel of the end, radiated a golden storm of destruction, each strike capable of erasing worlds. Diablo, the primordial black, turned Demon Lord's greatest shadow, stepped forward with a smile, untouched. Feldway roared as celestial spears rained down, distorting space itself. Yet Diablo moved through them like flowing ink. Every motion elegant, terrifying, perfect. His aura deepened. A crushing pressure formed from Rimuru's blessing and his own primordial might. Then, with a whisper, Diablo spoke.
The being of your caliber should know. Despair begins when resistance ends.
His hand slid through Feldway's final barrier, shattering it like glass. A single blow, silent, precise, drove Feldway into the abyss, his divine form flickering, crumbling under the overwhelming gap in power. Feldway coughed light, eyes wide, voice trembling as the darkness closed in around him.
Impossible. How can there be such a power gap between us?
Diablo only bowed, crimson eyes glowing.
That's simple. It's because you challenged the right hand of my demon lord.
And the void fell silent. Feldway fled back to Heavenly Star. His body aches after being turned to dust by Diablo, but he feels relieved now that he has come this far. There are still no signs of recovery, but he should be able to heal with time. The point is, he just needs to buy time. there are only a limited number of times he can jump directly to Tensei Seikyu Palace. Only the people who were allowed in were present. With Ivrage in the lower world, it was nearly impossible to break through Tensukkaku. Feldway had hoped to take this opportunity to rest and make a comeback. Diablo's strength was unexpected, but he would win next time. Feldway was sure he could win. He learned Diablo's fighting tactics, and after watching Yuki's fighting style, he was able to incorporate teleportation into his battles. No matter how strong Diablo was, he was no match for Feldway. However, there are also uncertainties. Its demon lord Rimuru, the dreaded slime, even returned from the other side of the terminus of space-time. It was an unbelievable event. This meant that chronosaltation space-time leap shockwave no longer worked on Rimuru. Chash, it would have been better if we had perished at the end of time and space. Muttering this, Feldway walked along the ruined path, heading towards the throne. However, there was an unexpected customer there. Hey, you've been beaten pretty badly. Sitting lazily on the throne was Diablo, who was supposed to be conquering Ramirez's labyrinth. With Rimuru's return, the Tempest Alliance suddenly becomes brimming with motivation, while the most malicious of all creatures, Ivrage, the world-destroying dragon, finally sets its step upon the world, plunging everything into chaos. It's truly an all-out war. Amidst the turmoil, Rimuru is told a shocking fact by Velzard. Information that could shake the very foundation of the battle itself. As the conflict reaches its peak, and everyone is forced into desperate struggles, everything is left in the hands of a single slime. The super popular isekai fantasy finally reaches its main story conclusion. Dyed white as a blizzard of despair, swirled from the outer edge of the battlefield to the center, encircling everyone so that no one could escape. The pure white snow and ice raged on. The soldiers were the first to be transformed into ice sculptures, followed by the captains and even the top warriors. Only the fearful remained, but it was only a matter of time. Velzard had not even attacked them. This blizzard was nothing more than the release of her hockey. For those who understood it, this phenomenon was an overwhelming wave of hopelessness. Velzard's hidden secret about Veldanava. Velzard's biggest secret, the one she hid even from Guy, Velgrind, and the rest of the world, is Veldora was not the weakest true dragon by nature. He was suppressed by Veldanava. Why? Because Veldanava loved his creations too much and never wanted them destroyed. But true dragons were born with power so overwhelming that they could accidentally annihilate the world. Veldora in particular had limitless growth potential, an extremely unstable emotional core, a wild nature that could have eventually surpassed even Velgrind and Velzard. Because of that, Veldanava decided to seal most of Veldora's potential at birth, block his growth to avoid catastrophic rampages, make him appear as the problem child among true dragons. Velzard knew this. Velgrind suspected it. Guy had no clue. But Velzard kept the truth hidden because she wanted to protect Veldora from being feared or targeted. She wanted to preserve Veldanava's legacy. Revealing it could destabilize the balance among the oldest beings. It would make people realize that the weakest true dragon was actually the most dangerous if unsealed. Why Velzard was the one. Velzard was the closest true dragon to Veldanava emotionally. She was the one he confided in the most, and she inherited his perspective, his regrets, his reasons for shaping the world the way he did. Velzard respected Veldanava's wishes above all else, so she never revealed the true nature of Veldora's power until circumstances forced her hand much later in the story. Rimuru teleported to the old Urazania battlefield, only to find out that the situation was in total collapse. Velzard had fully transformed into her true dragon form, was rampaging without restraint. A living natural disaster whose immense freezing authority threatened every organism in the area. Guy Crimson and Testarossa were barely containing the catastrophe by continuously activating emptiness to nullify Velzards at the moment of release. But this was a desperate attempt to prevent the inevitable attack of Velzard's Absolute Zero. To counter those effects, Geld reinforced layer after layer of defensive barriers, while Moss and Misery stabilized the structure of the field as backup. The cause of Velzard's rampage was already clear. Carrera has fired her once-per-day judgment bullet to destroy Twilight, who had been possessing Velzard's body. But with Twilight gone, Velzard had lost the final restraint in her heart, plunging her into blind rage. But then Rimuru clearly assessed the situation. Acting decisively, he expanded his dragon spirit haki to the entire battlefield and turning it into void collapse. This completely nullified every single attack from Velzard, shocking even Guy and Testarossa. And this was only possible thanks to Rimuru's vastly expanded energy reserves and Ciel's absolute analytical control. The perfect definition of yin and yang. Time flows differently in the spiritual world, so it wouldn't be strange for either Guy or Velzard to wake up at any moment. That meant I had to stay alert, but since I had wrapped Velzard's freezing aura and magical waves inside my void collapse, none of it leaked outside. In other words, nothing was happening. With nothing to watch, I started examining Velzard. The Velzard wrapped in my void collapse was in her beautiful dragon mode. Her total magical energy was enormous, greater than the post-evolution Velgrin. Even compared to Veldora, she was basically on equal ground. And I was suppressing such a monster without difficulty. Honestly, I was shocked at myself. My own magic energy had apparently grown to absurd levels. It seemed this was thanks to acquiring ultimate skill, God of Void, Azathoth. The more I heard about it, the more outrageous this ability sounded. I had been flung all the way to the end of the world by Feldway's Chronos alteration. That ended up giving Ciel time to research. She explained various things to me afterward, but honestly, half of it went over my head. I had some confidence that I was reasonably smart, but even when being told conceptual things like the speed of light is not constant, or time is not immutable, or things like that's just your imagination, isn't it? I could not even understand what kind of relation that had to abilities. There's a saying like, sometimes you just have to give up. So I decided to keep only the practical parts that a simple commoner like me needed to know. In short, the ultimate skill. God of Void Azathoth is In the simplest of terms, a mass of overwhelming energy. The void collapse I was currently using was basically the absolute collapse factor I had accumulated in the world of the end. Even Shell had trouble handling it at first, but after infinite time spent researching it, she had turned it into something I could use casually. Impressive, right? When I asked, so it's like going from a nuclear reactor to a fusion reactor. She answered, incorrect, sounding like she wanted more praise, but expecting me to focus that much on delicate details was a mistake. Anyway, apparently testing this energy was dangerous even inside the labyrinth. It wasn't something I could half-power or fine-tune, but the world of the end had been the perfect testing ground. I couldn't help but feel sorry for Feldway. Helping your enemy by accident. How pitiful. By the way, when I tried using this energy for magic, just as a test, a massive explosion happened. I used the beginner-level magic fireball, but it instantly turned into a huge inferno. It became on par with, or stronger than, the nuclear series magic Nuclear Flame, a widespread annihilation spell. At that point, controlling it was completely out of my skill range.
You have been asleep long